All right, let's start.
Welcome to week 2, day 8 of the legislative session. Our committees are underway. Appropriations committees are working hard to begin to build our base budget, which is not the final budget, but it is a bill that we pass early in the session in order to establish a base budget. And then we have building blocks on top of that that will be discussed after, I think, next week. Senator Hilliard, right?
We hope to get the appropriations finished Thursday night and executive appropriations, the base bill, budget bills on our desk Monday, and hopefully get them passed pretty quickly.
Okay. Well, we welcome you to our media availability and our public access through the internet, and we welcome those who are watching us today. And please send in your questions if you have any comments, and we'll attempt to address them. We wish we were skiing today, but we're here doing the people's business. Any questions from the press?
Oh, I've got a question if anybody else wants to ask one. I don't think I'll be able to answer it, but do you have any expectations what's going to happen in the audit subcommittee this afternoon with Board of Parole and Pardons? Do you have any expectations of what they're going to say in that audit?
Well, I've read through the audit, but we'll talk about that in audit committee.
Good news, bad news? Care to characterize it?
No, you'll come to audit committee this afternoon. You'll know
Make it work.
what the audit's about.
Well, nobody else had a question, so.
Okay.
Senator Weimer, you want to talk about porn?
What did you want to know about?
Obviously, you're getting a lot of attention for this one. Why did you decide to run this?
Well, I have some constituents who have an organization. They're very deeply concerned. They believe it's harmful for our youth and it's harmful for our society. I happen to agree with them. And so this is kind of a follow-up to a resolution I ran and passed in 2013. And based on some new research out of the United Kingdom and out of I believe it's Cambridge, basically MRI scans of people who compulsively use pornography basically show similar changes and similar reactions as drug addicts. And so I think, when people use drugs, when they use cigarettes today, they know that they're starting to use something that is very addictive. I don't know that people know that with pornography. And I think that in many instances, we're like the 1950s of nicotine and tobacco today with pornography. In fact, when my resolution went public on Friday, I was attacked all weekend on Twitter by people saying it's not addictive and it's not harmful. Well, I personally believe it is, and I think the science shows it is, and I think that's a discussion that we should be having, because it's impacting divorces, it's impacting our youth, it's undermining the family. And I think it's illegal, just like tobacco and some drugs are, but it's also something that's dangerous, and I think we should be discussing it.
Do you, your resolution, what would it do? You want to declare it a public health crisis, which I think people kind of go, that's a little extreme.
It's a non-binding resolution, so it doesn't, in that sense, it doesn't do anything. It's not going to spend any money. It's not going to pass any new laws. I think more than anything, it should put the public and people on notice, on warning. The resolution also says that the average age of first exposure to pornography is now 11 years old, and that's alarming to me. And I think that there's things I would like our nation to do, like in England, you have to opt into pornography on the internet. I would love for the United States to do that, but I can't do that as a Utah State Senator. But I would love to lay the foundation for a national discussion on what we can do to protect people from this harmful substance that's undermining, I think, a lot of the pillars of our society.
Are you expecting a lot of pushback? You said you got quite a bit, over the weekend, but are you expecting any kind of opposition, really, other than just people, the Facebook commenters or people on Twitter?
I've been surprised. I've been mocked internationally all weekend. I don't think I've ever been able to say that before. I was having Sunday dinner with my family yesterday, and a reporter from New York called me and asked if it was true that I was trying to outlaw masturbation in Utah, and I said no, and that's now in the New York Daily News today, that I'm not trying to do that. There are publications. Apparently this is a joking topic, all around the world, but I think it's a serious issue. I think, when I was a kid, people might sneak a Playboy magazine and look at it. Now you've got all kinds of horrible graphic images that are available to anyone with an internet connection 1 or 2 clicks away. And to pretend like this isn't going to have an impact on our families and our culture and our society, I think is naive.
How far do you expect this will go? It's in rules right now, but does it go to a committee hearing? Does it, or does it go straight to the floor?
Yeah, it was assigned to Health and Human Services just now. It'll go to, I've talked to the chairman of the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. I believe it'll be first on the agenda Friday at 4 p.m.
Are you surprised at how much attention this has gotten?
I kind of am, because I've been doing this for 3 years now, and nothing else has gotten this kind of attention. It's in Time Magazine, Time Online right now, and I was on CNN this morning talking about it. So yeah, I am surprised, but this is exactly, I think, what the discussion that I had hoped for. And I was approached, by the way, by a national organization at the World Conference on Families last October to run this resolution. Everything in the resolution is supported by science and research. It's not just a kooky thing that some politician from Mormon, Utah came up with. It's bigger than that. So I think this is a discussion that we should be having nationally. So I'm glad that it's getting attention.
Leadership have a position on it?
I support it. I think it's already having an impact on our society. It isn't something we need to be concerned with going forward. I know of a number of marriages that have ended over pornography, and it's kind of a degradation to our society to have it so available. Now, we have to have it available on a First Amendment basis, but I like what England's doing. You ought to be able to opt in. We need to protect our children from this, and it's very difficult, with all the different phones that they have and accesses to the internet.
You have a position on it?
I haven't read the document
SCR,
yet, the resolution. I think I'm interested in taking a look at that because the science is out there on what's going on. But where is that definition? Where do you cross that line? So
I know it when I see it.
I'm supporting it. You're taking a poll.
There is a question that came in over text on this for Senator Weiler. Somebody wants to know if this is within your constitutional right to regulate this element of people's private lives, and they want to know how you would regulate it, if you could. And do you feel confident in the support of other senators on this bill?
First of all, I don't think the resolution's regulating anybody's life. I respect the fact that pornography is legal for adults and that people have a right to do in their own bedrooms and in their homes what they want to do. I'm not trying to change that. More than anything, I think, like I already said, before you pick up a cigarette today, you may be acquiring an addiction. I'd like people to know that with pornography before they approach it. So that's number one. I'm not trying to regulate it, but if I could regulate it, I would probably do something like England has done and say that you should have to opt into pornography on the internet. So for the people that would like to avoid it, they don't have to have it kind of thrown in their face all the time.
Any other questions?
Just if he thinks he has the support of senators.
Oh, I haven't polled my fellow colleagues, and we've got so many bills coming out. This probably is catching a lot of people by surprise, and if so, I apologize for that. But I've got a lot of bills, and I didn't realize this one was going to generate so much discussion so quickly.
How many bills are we at right now? Does anybody have numbers on bill requests?
Van Tassel here.
I know we've got Thursday is the deadline to declare them, but
I haven't heard anything for a week, but we were well ahead of last year.
you were at 1,300 last week. I just wondered if that number had changed.
I haven't heard recent numbers.
Oh, I guarantee it's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially due to the fact
I think
that-
there's no question we're going to have more bills filed than we did last year.
Gotcha.
The question is, the bottom line is, how many of those extra will pass? I think there's a threshold on the number of bills that we can address in a session, and 500, I hope, is the maximum. So, anyway.
If I can back up a little bit, if you think this is the pornography thing, if it is a harmful situation, why stop with the resolution?
Well,
Why not go with what
I'm just saying the resolution is a first step. The resolution may get amended, it may get watered down, it may fail. I don't know exactly where this is going, but I'm also very cognizant of the fact that Utah is one very small state in a big country, and Utah, I would not support an effort for Utah to try to regulate the internet. I think this is, if that's where this needs to go, then that's something that needs to be let out by Congress on a national level. But I would certainly support that. But what I can do is I can shed some light on the issue in Utah. As President Niederhauser said, I'm also aware of marriages that have resulted in divorces and families that have been undermined by the harmful impact of pornography. And I think we ought to stop just pretending like it's no big deal, because quite frankly, it is a big deal, and it affects government. If it deteriorates the family, then that affects government. That impacts people on welfare. It impacts people who can't afford to pay their bills. It impacts literally everything we do at the government level. And I think that if the science is there, that we should be discussing that. And so that's what the resolution is trying to do.
So, Senator, to be clear, you're not proposing any bans or anything, any regulation of adult entertainment or adult industry or anything like that?
I'm not. I'm absolutely not doing that. But I think that we ought to call a spade, if that's still a term that people use. But pornography, I believe, is addictive to many people and is harmful to many families. And I think people ought to be aware of that. So.
And this is where it starts. National policy usually starts in the states, where you get a number of states calling for action in Congress. And we've had some Supreme Court rulings on the First Amendment regarding pornography. But for heaven's sakes, we got to protect our children against this. I mean, you know, we do everything we can to protect them from alcohol and for tobacco, and this is can be more destructive than any of those items and those habit-forming substances. So I think we need to be proactive as a state and proactive as a nation and do everything we can to not take away people's rights, but to protect at least the children.
And, you know, if you're asking, this is beyond the scope of the resolution, but if it is declared a public health crisis in the state of Utah, I hope that libraries will take a second look at allowing access to pornography on their computer systems that children have access to. And I know that libraries are not into censorship, and I'm not trying to censor anybody, but also I've been contacted by parents whose children are in restaurants with free Wi-Fi, and they're connecting to pornography sites on restaurants, some of them which cater to children. And I would hope that restaurants would say, well, wait a second, what are we providing to our customers under the age of 18? I would love for libraries on their own and restaurants on their own to start looking at their policies and seeing what they could do to help protect our children in this state.
Predictions for the Iowa caucuses?
The Broncos will win.
My next question.
Senator Hiller, while I've got you sitting next to me, could you just tell me, maybe explain to me a little bit the motivations behind SB 100 and what you hope it accomplishes?
Well, it's motivated by the calls I've received over the years by people really upset about what happens as they go through Manaway. I heard something today I need to verify that the conviction rate is almost 100%. Doesn't do you any good to go in and contest the ticket. You're going to be found guilty. And I was also surprised by the article, I guess it was last April, by Channel 2. Well, they broke down all of the money that's going through this process in funding for government. I would dare say 99.9% are people who are not residents of Manaway. They're people who are using that state highway that really bypasses the business and the housing part. That's what it is. So I think that Channel 2 article, as I heard that, and I had people in my community say, wow, can't you do something about that? People, I think, are offended by the idea of having policemen as revenue officers. You send a policeman out, his only job is to give tickets and raise revenue from the community. I think people are offended by that. So the bill actually does not prohibit it. It just caps their amount. 25% should be ample enough for that city or any city to pay for their police force and their courts and to handle it. I just don't think it should be a bonus type of doing additional work. So we'll hear it today in committee, and I hope we push it through and get it done.
Are there any police organizations or cities and counties and towns pushing back against this at all? Or?
Well, I'm sure Manaway Police is. They will be doing that. I hear most of them are just kind of neutral on it. They agree with me that policemen should not have the image out there that their only job is to give tickets to raise money for whoever they're a highway patrol, for example. They don't benefit 1 inch from any of the tickets they give. It's all paid separately. Our court system, you go down to a district court judge, or they're not paid by the amount of fines they assess or any of that. And I think directly or indirectly, that's a problem. And I think the problem, it creates an image that's not good for law enforcement. There's some concern that we're tinkering around with city government and they should have their own, but cities are created by the state. We built the highway, we set the speed limit, we built a barrier down the middle, and so I think a lot of emphasis that ought to be patrolled by highway patrolmen or state officers, and they write the tickets go to Manaway. It's not bypassing that, but that's the concern.
Any other questions from our media? Any other questions from our viewers?
Nope.
Okay, well, we'll end our media availability today and look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
Unless we're skiing.
When are you guys going to declare a legislative ski day?